And we are live. So happy Wednesday, everyone. I hope the sun is shining where you guys are, is with me. Today, we've got Ollie back. Ollie finished in the program, the 1% Blueprint, with us actually we just discussed it about 8 weeks ago now. He's kind of taken 20, 30 minutes out of his day to discuss his experience, where he was at, where he's got to, and some of his key learnings. So anyone that's interested, I think you'll get a lot out of this conversation. Before we kind of get into the meat of it, Ollie, do you want to just introduce yourself, who you are, what you do, a bit about you?
Yeah, sure. Thanks, Luke. So, Ollie back. I'm a partner at a professional services firm in London. So I'm coming up to my 3-year anniversary there, and kind of been in professional services all my life. Obviously, taking on a partnership role was quite a step change in terms of the responsibility and the workload. And at the same time, I've had our first son as well, who's now just turned 3. So quite a lot of life changes all at once over the last year. And then throw a pandemic in the mix. That's kind of what I've been up to over the last 2-3 years.
Cool, thank you. So what we'll do is if we have a chat about kind of what was going on with you prior to starting, or like what was your motivation for joining something like this. So let's rewind. I think you, like we just said, I think you kind of finished up in the program about 8 weeks ago. So let's rewind. Pushing 5 months ago now. What was going on with you, and what was kind of maybe your motivation for reaching out and having a conversation?
Yeah, I think just generally trying to juggle it, and loads of people I've spoken to about this since I've done the program have said, yeah, actually, I find the same. I feel the same way. We're just trying to balance career, family, friends, your own personal time, and your own well-being is really, really challenging. And I don't think the pandemic's helped in any way. And so a lot of people are feeling like this at the minute. And for me, the easiest thing to fall down the pecking order was my own well-being, like my own physical and mental well-being. So, rather than going to the gym, I'd kind of just work harder, or spend more time doing things for other people, and kind of let the gym slide. So fitness wanes, you gain weight, you start kind of ordering deliveries instead of cooking healthier meals because it's easier. So all of the personal side of stuff just seemed to slip away, and it wasn't a conscious thing. It just happened. And it got to a point back in March where I was just, one morning, it was just trying to balance too much work stuff. I wanted to make sure that I was present with my boy and my wife, and I just wasn't able to make it work. And then throw on top of that, I'm kind of opening up the cupboard and looking at the certain size of shirts that I've still got in the wardrobe, but I wasn't able to fit into, and then having to reach for the size up, just thinking, hang on a minute, this is not sustainable. I've got to do something about it. And so I'd kind of tried all sorts of stuff before: dieting, exercise programs, PTs, which kind of worked to an extent. But I think it's all of those things for me were very all or nothing. And I could do it all for about 4 or 5 weeks and then probably not see that much progress and just get a bit disheartened and then just slip back into the old way of working. So it was actually a LinkedIn post one Wednesday morning where I was having a bit of a shocker, and a colleague of mine posted his kind of 12-week completion post for the 1% program, and it just, everything he said, literally everything he said, just summarized where I was at, how I was feeling, and where I'd struggled before. And I think it was within probably 10 minutes of that, I think I'd emailed you and you emailed me back. And I was pretty much signed up to day one, a day or two later, I think, wasn't it? It was pretty quick.
Yeah, I think that's, and I think what you were saying there, Ollie, is about a couple of things. It's the general overwhelmed nature of how things can happen, and I think that kind of scenario situation, it doesn't come from a malintentioned place. It's actually, you want to be successful at work, you want to push at work, and you want to be great for your family and your kids and your wife and all the rest of it. And then, but I think what ends up happening for a lot of us, or you, and I mean the royal you there, is that you end up sacrificing your own physical and mental well-being at the altar of that, which, in a way is good because you want to provide, but actually then everyone gets a diluted version and you doing yourself, and you end up compromising yourself as a byproduct. But then it's kind of hard to see the wood for the trees. So you maybe try some of these disparate ideas. I'll get a PT or I'll do a diet and the rest. And it's focusing acutely on those areas for a bit might work temporarily, but it hasn't really fundamentally addressed some of the more fundamental issues as to why you were where you are. And something I say a lot is you're the sum product of your daily actions, behaviors, and choices. And it's not the big shiny stuff. So trying to do a hardcore diet or getting a PT, and there's nothing wrong with PTs. They're fantastic and it's helpful for one modality. but often there's so much more going on that you need to get a handle on. And I think for me, that speaks to why those things don't usually work long term if done in isolation. Does that sort of make sense or resonate?
Yeah, it totally does. And I think something I really learned through doing the program was that you've got to address lots of different things at the same time. And that doesn't necessarily mean it's overwhelming. I think what you've helped me do is really break down little small incremental changes that you kind of just layer in week on week that actually don't feel like a chore. It doesn't feel like you're foregoing anything. It's just natural changes that become habitual. But it's not just about the fitness side of things. You know, you deal with the mental well-being aspect as well, which is a really important driver for me to begin with, and then the nutritional side as well. And all of those three things need to talk to each other to really make it work.
Yeah, and I think that's that whole sort of a slightly wanky word, but holistic, like, you know, view of things. But it has to be like, you know, maybe when you're 21 and you've got no responsibilities and you can sort of get away with caning yourself in the gym and burn the candle at both ends, that might work. When you're 37, 38, 40, you know, whatever, you got family, kids, very busy, intense job that you want to push at, like, to try and use that same sort of operating manual, it's just not going to work. But I think that's often where we often get stuck. It's like, well, that's the only way I can do it. Well, that doesn't work, so I'm stuck. It's like, no, not necessarily. Okay, so I think that's probably a nice segue. If we sort of like fast forward then to today, and I think one of the things that you said, like the weight piece, although that was important, your physicality, that wasn't your burning bridge really when we spoke, was it? But I think, if we talk about then some of the successes we had, and as well as that, like what are your main kind of like, what are the main successes you've had having come out of the program and was now sitting on the other side?
I think, 5 months. Yeah, I think you're right. When I first, the reason that I prompted me to call you initially was not about wanting to lose weight or look better. It was about feeling better and being able to kind of make sure I could juggle everything and be present, particularly with my family, as well as be, you know, managing the workload. So that was the initial driver. And I remember sitting on week 1 call and looking at everybody's weight chart. Literally everybody without exception had a weight loss chart, which kind of went almost like 45 degrees. And I was just thinking, there's the thought at that point of me even losing 1 kilo. I was just thinking, I can't do it, because I've tried it in the past. That I won't be able to do that. But then actually you let 2 or 3 weeks go by and you start seeing it and you feel really good about it. And so you keep going and you keep going and you layer more and more and more stuff in. And so I think for me now, I think it was 10 kilos I lost over the program, which made a massive difference to my just general level of energy and just how I felt about things, on top of the mental well-being stuff that you've done. But since that time, I think I've lost a further 2 over the last 8 weeks. So yeah, as I said, it's kind of, it dropped very rapidly over the program. But the really key thing for me is that I've been able to sustain it since.
I think that's a really important thing, because I think I talk about this a lot, and when I speak to individuals at the start of some of the process, you know, I want it to be sustainable and I want consistency and it not being a flash in the pan. And I think what you're speaking about there, that highlights that, because it's not let's do some weird and wonderful crap for 12 weeks and then on you go. For me, I mean, I'm putting words in your mouth. Hopefully you're in an empowered place so you can continue with this stuff without the need of like some crazy program or some weird mechanism that we've invented to help you do what you need to do, right?
Yeah, and it's all, I do it all without thinking, and I think working with you, I really flipped the switch from thinking, well, if I go on a diet, if I'm watching my calories, or if I'm, you know, watching my alcohol, I'm having to forego stuff, and I viewed it as a sense of what I'm going to miss out on. But actually, on the booze front and on the food front, I started to view, you know, making healthier choices as a really empowering choice. And actually, particularly on the booze, the following day, particularly on a Saturday morning, if I've chosen not to drink on a Friday night, which, you know, for a lot of people is fairly habitual at the end of a work week, there was 1 week where you said, right, just go and make sure that you pick a day where you don't drink, and it's going to be hard for you to do it. And I chose it on that Friday, and actually the next day was one of the best Saturdays I'd had I can remember, because I woke up probably for the first time since I was a teenager with a really crystal clear head.
Yeah.
I was able to go and get some exercise in, and I just spent the morning with my boy, and it was just the most amazing way to spend a Saturday. And for me, that was a light bulb to say, actually, it's not you foregoing, you know, a nice meal out or some drinks. It's actually you choosing a different outcome.
Yeah. I think that's what you said there. That's an important distinction, because I think it's about owning decisions and choices, and it's not about restriction. And having the drink isn't wrong, or not having the drink isn't wrong. That's not what it's about. It's about you being clear on that your actions have consequences, be them positive or negative. But also, if you're comfortable with those, that's absolutely fine. And I think versus just rolling into habits and behaviours and ways of acting and operating, then maybe not feeling a bit sorry for yourself. When actually, if we're honest, it's like, well, if I've done X, well, then I've chosen the result, which is Y. Yeah. Now, there's no judgment there, but once you become more conscious of that, it makes it easier. So it's like, well, I've chosen not to have this, not because I'm restricting myself, because I want a different version of Y in the morning. And that's also cool, you know? So, or it might be, I haven't seen a load of friends in ages, find that, I'm going to drink a lot. Well, I'm probably going to feel a bit rubbish tomorrow, but that's also a choice. And that's also cool, as long as you're conscious and deciding these things, you know?
Yeah, definitely. And I think on the food front as well, beforehand, I used to get a bit disheartened if I'd been quite good at eating and then I have a weekend blowout, or I go on holiday and I'm eating kind of steak and chips and pizza and all of that kind of unhealthy stuff. I would come back and feel really guilty about it, and then worry about whether or not I was going to get back to a healthy footing. But actually now, so I've just been away over the bank holiday weekend, and I did, I drank and ate without really thinking about it too much, but I didn't feel guilty about it, because I know that come, Tuesday morning, I'm back on it. I'm back into the routine, and it's habitual, and I don't feel like I'm, sacrificing anything. It's just normal life.
Well, I think that's it. It's this whole concept of being on or off a wagon. Well, like, life is life. And I think there's times when we've got habits, routine, and discipline that I think ebb and flow. And the normal day-to-day, Monday to Friday, there's a certain way that we operate that's fine. But if that framework fits you and helps you thrive and helps you feel nourished, and you're in a good headspace, well, when you've had a bit more indulgence over a weekend away or a bank holiday, you're not like, oh God, back to it's like, no, I like feeling like that as well. Because equally, overindulging for too much doesn't feel great, and absolute total restriction doesn't feel great. And it's been able to sort of ebb and flow between that, rather than having like these binary ways of operating. I think.
Yeah, you're totally right. That's exactly how I've kind of come to view it as well. And I think, say Monday morning, where I had kind of overindulged over the weekend, the old me, however many weeks ago, 5 months ago, would have got really depressed about it. But actually, I woke up the next day thinking, it's all right, because I'm just going to do all of the old habits what I do on a daily basis. It doesn't hurt. It's perfectly manageable. I like doing it, and I know that it works. So actually, I'm okay if I just go and have a few days blowout, because actually in a week's time, 2 weeks' time, it'll be sorted.
And the way I see it, you talk about sustainability, in life, I think we all want to have times when we do that. So you need. I think in life it needs to accommodate that. And when I talk to people at the start of the program, sometimes you're seeing some gents might go on holiday the first couple of weeks when we're in the program, or can I do that? I know I've got a wedding coming up. Yeah, good. Do you think that's not going to happen outside of this period of time we're going to work together? Well, of course it's not. Of course it is. So anything you do needs to be, you need to learn to be able to how to accommodate these things and enjoy them without it like messing up either your headspace or what you do. And I think what you're saying there, being able to flow into it, that's for me. That's, you talk about the sustainability bit. That's what allows it to be saying. It's not about stopping yourself doing those. It's about making sure they're part of what you want to do. I think.
It is, and it's a mindset shift. And once it takes a bit of effort to change the mindset and make it become habitual. But once you've got that mindset, you're always thinking, actually, it's something I want to do. I want to go back to the routine that I've established that makes healthier choices, makes me feel better, makes me lose a bit of weight, makes me get fitter. And it's something you start to crave to go back to, rather than thinking, I've got to, I'm going to have to.
Oh God, I'm back on a wagon. So I think that there's the health, the fitness, and the weight piece, which is fantastic. Like you also talked about the sort of the well-being and the sort of the mental well-being side of things. What I guess would you say were your key wins or successes around that side of things?
Yeah, quite a number of things. I think it's quite hard to kind of pin down just one or two. I think some of the things that we've discussed in the past as well is just getting a sense of perspective, because when everybody's really busy and it's if things kick off at work or at home or whatever it might be, problems can start kind of generating quite a lot of kind of negative noise, I suppose. And it's making sure that you can zoom out and get a sense of perspective around those rather than kind of getting dragged in on a daily basis are really important. And I think you mentioned there was a book or a fact that someone basically said was it 4,000 weeks?
Yeah.
On Earth, you're roughly halfway through. So actually, it's not that much time left. So if you're going week on week on week, saying, "Oh, that was a tough week. That was a tough week. That was a tough week," that they will tick down pretty fast. So actually, you've got a choice here. You either kind of stay stuck and you make the choices to get engaged and bogged down in some of the challenges that you're facing, but actually, that mindset shift is really important, because actually, if I look on what's happened from a Friday to a Monday, quite often nothing has. But back in the day, I would have been happy going into the weekend, but come Sunday, I'd have got all Sunday bluesy and kind of starting to fret about stuff and then not being able to be present. But actually, nothing really externally has changed. It's all kind of what's going on upstairs.
Internally, exactly.
Yeah.
So on that, then, so you carry on.
No, I was just going to say. So I think being able to be more controlled in that area, and realizing that actually, if something kind of sideswipes you as a problem or a challenge to resolve, a lot of how it impacts you is down to how you choose to react to it. The things you need to do to solve it are the things you need to do to solve it, whether you worry about it or not. And I think just having a greater ability to, I'm not perfect at it by any stretch, but having a greater ability to do that makes a significant difference. But I think sorry, just one kind of final thing.
No, I want you to talk. Yeah.
And it's really important how all of these different areas kind of interact with each other, in that it was all about getting better at kind of mental well-being. But actually, as I started to get fitter, started to lose weight, started to feel better about myself, that relieves the pressure on the mental well-being, and then makes you a bit stronger and better able to kind of cope with work stresses and whatever it might be. So it's kind of like a bit of a snowballing effect when you actually attack all of those areas at once.
Yeah, well, I think that they're all inextricably linked. I think, and you can't have one without the other. And because, like, sometimes I think some guys, if you are feeling overwhelmed, you've got so much work going on, and you think, well, I've got these quite esoteric problems, or not esoteric, so existential problems. You're like, well, the fact that I'm overweight, I don't like that. I'm not happy about that, but that's not as important. But actually, your own self and your physicality and how you show up and I guess how you align with where you want to be, where you want to be, and maybe where you are, that has a big bearing on your self-esteem and your self-efficacy and what you're doing. And so you start to show yourself, even in a practical level, that you can take care of yourself physically. Well, that starts to bleed in elsewhere. Now, that's not to say that there's not other more fundamental work we need to do to help empower you to make better choices, set boundaries, decisions and stuff elsewhere in your life, and do some of the deeper thinking around some of those other things. But I think the two things go hand in hand. And if you're not taking care of yourself physically, there's a lot of low-hanging fruit there that can help you feel better about yourself to then put yourself into a state to do that. And so if you tie the two pieces together and do that at the same time, I think that for me, that's where the magic happens, because it's like a double empowerment. And like you said, it's not going to be perfect all the time, but being able to just stop and take a step back and be objective about a situation or scenario, I think that's a very empowered place to operate from, versus what can happen, at least at the start of this process, with a lot of the gents I speak to, is it's like the whole world's coming at you. You can't do much, and you're not able to control your situation, and your self-efficacy or the feeling about what you can do feels quite diminished. But then when you're like, I can do that, and I can do that, and that's like, right, that's a good state to operate from, I think.
Yeah, 100%. I think what I've come away from the program with is a series of tools that I can go to, whether it's kind of physical fitness, nutritional, mental well-being. And I'm not going to get all of those right at once, and I might get none of them right at once. But actually, the fact is, I've got the ability to use all those tools, and they've become fairly habitual, as I said. And actually, over time, I'm getting more right than I am wrong. So actually, you're making positive progress continually. So. And I think for me, that was one of the real lessons, is that it doesn't have to be a really massive concerted crash diet or fitness drive or whatever it might be. Actually, if you make those marginal gains really do build up. And if you're doing them consistently and you're disciplined about it, actually the results just follow. They're a byproduct. It's not necessarily goal in mind. You're just following what tools you've equipped me with, and then the results will come.
Well, that's it. And I think I was thinking about this the other day. That's the phrase, you're the sum product of your daily actions and habits and choices. If you're 10 kilos heavier than you want to be, that's the weight piece. You're stressed out your head. You're snapping at your kids. You're not being present with your wife, you're game facing at work, but actually a bit more tired. And if you're honest, that's it. Like, well, how is that being created? It's not some big shiny thing. It's every little thing you're doing throughout your day and at your life. And so all those things then aren't serving you to be that. So the converse of that, like, well, it's still all the some products, your daily actions, habits, and choices, but they're then aligned with the person you want to be. And it's like, if I'm feeling like this, there's clearly other things that need to be addressed. And then what you're saying, I think what you're saying there, Ollie, is that like when you get those habits, behaviors, mindsets aligned, well, then I'm living the life I want to be. I'm aligned with the man that I want to be. And actually then as a byproduct, a lot of it takes care of itself, right?
Yeah, totally. And kind of leading on from that, there was one moment about halfway through the 12 weeks that again was a massive kind of wake up call for me, where if stuff comes in at work and it's an urgent client need or a deadline or something, my first instinct is always to go, well, everything has to drop and I have to do that. It has to be now. And it coincided with my son coming home from nursery, and you know that kind of golden hour where you just get to hang out and before bath and bed. And my first instinct was, I've got to just get this report done. I'm going to have to sacrifice spending time with him. And then that starts to kind of breed a bit of stress and resentment in its own right, that actually you're not in control of doing the things you want to do. But I actually just stopped and said, actually, no, I'm going to park this until he's gone to bed. And I was able to kind of just really diligently leave the work behind, put the phone off, and just spend time with him. And it was the first time that he's been able to kick the ball back to me. So It's like that, me making that choice was, resulted in my first kickabout with my boy. And for me, that's something that I'll remember for, well, probably forever. And, after he's gone to bed, I was able just to pick it up, get the thing resolved. So actually everything got done, but it was my choice about how I approach it all. That made the real difference there.
And that's, something you said earlier about, how you choose to react. It totally is. It's like there's this urgent client need that has to be addressed, being a partner at a financial services firm, also a professional services firm, like these things have to happen, right? You get that. But does it actually have to happen that millisecond? And so you can make a choice there and you can go, well, I can do it, sacrifice the time with my son and it would get done, probably feel annoyed that you have to do that, resent the client probably, and be annoyed at yourself. Or you go, you know what? I'm going to spend this hour with my little boy. Do it. You get to see his first kickabout, which is amazing. And then you're still going to do the report and everyone's happy. For me, that's all what this is all about. It's fundamentally empowering you to make the decisions that are right with you. And that's that boundaries bit as well. Because I think some people say, well, how do I get work-life balance? And they think it's like a magical hack where, you do something magic at home. And for me, that's bullshit. It's actually about being able to take responsibility and ownership of yourself, have clear boundaries around what you are going to do and allow and not, and then work within those parameters. But the more clear and conscious you are about yourself and your decisions and what you do, it enables you to do that. When we're in that reactive firefighting state, you feel like you're trying to control stuff but not really able to control anything and trying to do everything and then sacrificing yourself in the process. Whereas the converse is what you just described there, Ollie, which I think is amazing.
Yeah, and the bottom line is nobody's inbox is ever going to be clear. You never complete your inbox, do you? It's always, tomorrow more and more will continue pile on. So actually, unless you kind of proactively get in control of that, and how you choose to react to stuff coming in, if you do what I used to do, which is basically, I have to deal with everything. If it's coming, I've got to deal with it. Everything else just completely gets sidelined, and then, that's a very unsustainable place to be.
Yeah. Whereas the place where you're being realistic and honest with what you can achieve and what you can do, some things will have to be parked a bit, but then the things that you do will get a better focus. And those things that are parked, if they are ultimately something that needs to be happened, you'll do it, but you'll be in a better state to do it. Not only that, your personal life and your family life and your own well-being doesn't get compromised as a product of that. So then it's a win-win, right?
Yeah, definitely.
Awesome. So I'm aware of time, Ollie. I know you're notwithstanding what we just said, you're a very busy man. So before we wrap up, I guess one of the final question then, and it's probably quite a big question, so you just answer however you want, but like, what would you say is your main takeaway from the process and the program? If there was one thing that you're going to say that, the big learning.
I think the thing for me is that it's all right to reach out for someone to say, actually, something's not right here. I need some support. Because particularly for men, they do find it quite difficult, trying to say, actually, I'm not 100% in control of things here. And being able to kind of be honest with yourself to say, you know what, things do need to change. I need to do something about it. It's okay not to know all the answers. You just have to find people who can help you find those answers. And so I think that first step is massive. And I think once the minute I'd booked on week 1 with you, I felt a massive sense of relief because I knew that I was doing something about it finally. And so taking that first step can be really challenging. But once you've done it, I mean, as I said, I was really nervous about starting the program. I thought, oh my God, like how intense is it going to be? Am I going to be able to fit everything in? But actually, it was really manageable, and it went by really quickly. Really enjoyed it, and I'm in a significantly better place now than I was before I started.
Thank you, and I think that's the point. And I think I said this to you before we just came on live. Was like I enjoy having conversations like this with clients who come through the process like it's a few months after, because it just shows you that this whole piece around taking ownership, building discipline, leveraging what you have and being in control of yourself, they're the tools that we give you. And you're the one who's in control and empowered. Because if it wasn't the case, I'd be having this chat and you'd be like, it's all gone to shit. But it hasn't, right? Because you're the one in the driving seat. And that's why I love this. And just to say, like, the bits that I love most about coaching personally, weight loss stuff, that's fine. I mean, it doesn't really get me going. The stuff you said about, playing football with your little boy and getting that balance, for me, that's what life's about. Because, you talk about the 4,000 weeks, I believe, you've only got now, this moment and the next, and that's it. And so if you can't enjoy those special moments there, what's the point, And yeah, we want to be successful. Yeah, we want to provide. Yeah, we've got career aspirations. That's fine and fantastic, and that should be nurtured as well. But it's also important to do the other stuff as well, right? And I think that's getting that balance, that rare balance, right? And you're practicing that, mate, which is awesome.
Excellent.
Thank you. Right. Well, on that note, Ollie, as I said, I know you're busy, so I'll let you get off. For anyone that's watching this, if they're interested in having a chat, they're in a similar situation to Ollie, reach out, give me a shout, drop me a note in the comments or drop me a DM. Ollie, thank you so much. I really appreciate your time.
Cheers, Luke.
It's great
to see you.
You're thriving. Anyone else, have a great Wednesday, and thank you for your time. Cheers, Ollie. Thanks.
Cheers, Luke. Thanks.